Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are continuing our trolley series by completing the scratch-built row houses we started last week. This is what we finished then, and here's a peek at what we want the finished project to look like. Some of the materials I used included plaster-struck brick sheeting. It's 1/200 scale, so a little smaller than end scale at 1/160th, but it will work. And as you can see here, I was able to cut it on a Cricut machine using the 3/16 basswood setting. We also have an assortment of windows and doors from Tichy Train Group. I got 3 window sizes, one for the basement, one for the ground floor, and one for the upper stories, and a set of doors for each of the houses. Here's kind of my design concept with each window size and door fitted into the pre-cut cardboard, just to kind of give you an idea of how the building front is going to look. We'll also need some thin, say 30 mil sheet of styrene, as well as various square styrene rods of various thicknesses and sizes from 30 mils up to 80. And yes, that is real units of measure, mils, not those silly millimeters. The first thing I did was cut down some of that 30 mil sheet to fill in where the concrete foundation would show below the brick face. Before painting, I added some acrylic modeling paste with a cotton swab to give it a bit of texture, and then painted a light gray once that was all dry. Next up was to apply a thin coat of gloss varnish over the scale brick sheets, and then I came back with a diluted oil wash of an off-white to try and simulate the mortar joints. In the end, I don't think it showed much, but sometimes you just gotta try. I'm not sure using my standard thinned acrylic wash would have worked any better, as these bricks had a really shallow depth to them. After that had all dried, I masked off sections of the building fronts, about the same width as one of the units. And then I came back and dry brushed different shades of red and some tan to show how residents would have painted their houses different than their neighbors, just to give them a little bit of individual character. The sides and the back brick walls were all done in the same light red color. Time to get gluing. I decided to use a gel super glue. It gives you a 10 to 15 second cure time, so you have time to move the plastic and set it in place before the glue makes a permanent bond. I went with gluing the front bricks on first, as they had the most cutouts to line up with all those windows and doors, and if they didn't line up, the whole project was a bust and I'd have to start over. The front concrete was next in the process, and it was repeated along the sides and the rear of the buildings. And again, I did the front first because if I screwed that up, there's no sense doing the backs and the sides. When I designed the cuts, I wasn't quite sure how to cap off the bricks, as the flat plastic sides would show no matter which way I oriented them. In the end, I ended up using some 40 mil square stock to conceal the unmitered corners. This was definitely a learning experience for me, as this was my first attempt at scratch building a building that was designed to look like the real thing, not a tabletop piece of terrain that kind of wants to give you the feel and vibe that's there, but doesn't actually have to conform to any real standards. So it's not perfect, and I may have to try something different moving forward. But for now, I think the technique worked okay, and I've learned some things about super glue and styrene and how I really want to move forward with it. But I do kind of like the finished look. All that aside, I needed to keep moving forward with the build, so it was time to tackle those doors and windows. After a quick prime in white on the front sides and black on the back sides, I broke out the speed paints, as the thought of shading and highlighting all those tiny bits was something I really didn't want to work on. I let the paint dry and cure, and then came back to install the window glass. Tichy supplies pre-cut plastic for this task and suggests using thin cement to adhere them to the frames. I will tell you that I was a little nervous about using cement on clear parts, as it usually fogs, but whatever they use for plastic, it didn't fog. It is, though, a bit fiddly at this scale, so I found that using a small barbecue stick, or you could use a toothpick, to hold the clears in place as I applied cement was the way to go. Tichy also recommends that if you want to have curtains or window treatments on the windows, that you need to paint them on the back side of the glass. And since I wouldn't be able to do this once they were installed, I took the time to paint curtains. Some I had pulled back, some were closed, and I used various colors. But once all the curtains were done, I came back and put a thin wash of an ivory colored acrylic over the entire panel to simulate like a sheer panel that you would have on the inside of your house for some privacy. And this is how they look installed. I use PVA glue to install both the windows and the doors, mostly because I wanted to have a longer setting time to get them just right. There was a bit of a tight fit, and I was worried that if I used the styrene cement, I just might muck up the brick surface. Off camera, I used offcuts of the bricks as well as some styrene square stock and flat stock to make some top of the building facades. The last bit was the rooftop. Flat roofs usually have a tar and gravel covering. At N scale, it's kind of hard to mimic that pea gravel size, so I ended up using a 400 grit piece of sandpaper. This was attached to the top cardstock with a spray of adhesive and primed a dark slate color. Now that the roof is super glued in place, I came back and dry brushed it with a neutral gray, roughly in the width of each row unit. And since I was dry brushing it, it dried really quick, and I was able to come back and glue some pre-painted styrene square strips. They're still that 30 mil thickness, and I put them in between each of the units. This kind of gives you what you see is when they build the buildings, they usually bring the brick up above the roof line so you can differentiate each building, and then they just kind of lay the tar paper over the top of it. So that's why I just went with the gray. And after those were dried, I came back with more dry brushing and worked up through lighter grays until I got the look that I liked. Off camera, I also built some steps out of styrene stock and offcuts of the brick face, and I installed those with PVA glue as well. And I have to say, I am very happy with this scratch-built unit for my upcoming neighborhood trolley shelf layout. Once I get the rest of the buildings I've planned built, and they're all put onto the layout, I'll come back and add more details so that the buildings blend into the scene. But for now, I am very pleased with this model and encouraged to move forward with making more. Practice hopefully improves my skills. If you enjoyed this build, please consider a like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you want to see more builds like this one.